All right. Well, I'm going to get started here, 7 o'clock on the East Coast of the United States on planet Earth. I finished the Gateway program. I'm just going back through some of my favorite meditations. And I'm not experiencing much, but I'm enjoying them. And I have to set my times better for when I do the meditations for my experience in having experiences. So I gotta wake up even earlier. I'm having very vivid dreams and stuff like that, but no out of body experiences and no lucid dreams. And doing these meetups too, I notice if I when I practice my out of body experiences, if I screw up my sleep too much, it affects the way I am for the rest of the day with like a foggy mind and stuff. So I have to watch when I do them, and especially on nights like this, otherwise I'd be on like a zombie state. So um, I'll set aside more time for that later, and that's where I'm at. So Jace, what's up with you? Anything you want to share?
Oh, nothing new. I'm still trying to get my sleep schedule in order. So yeah, that's completely out of whack. So I have lots of dreams, just otherwise it's a mess. So
Well,
hopefully I'll make some progress here soon as I get some more bandwidth. Yeah.
it's a
But
good stage to remember your dreams. So at least you're somewhere there.
yeah, yeah, that's a plus. That's all I have to say about that.
Cool. Thanks, Jason. Hi, Marty. What's new?
Hello. Uh, I wish something, boy, nothing new.
Nothing new. Yep, that's all right. Where's the alien tonight?
He's in the other room.
Oh, okay.
I can get him.
Well, if you want. It's cool though. Jason didn't see that last time. He'll get a kick out of that
I
one.
will. I will get him. I'll be right back.
Okay. Thanks, Marty. All right, let's see what else here. Let's see. Let's move on to Mikey. What's up, Mikey? How you doing?
Good afternoon, guys. Well, it's always hot in the Caribbean here. We do not experience winter or anything like that.
Yeah, it's hard sitting in the ocean, right?
Yes, right there in the ocean, the Caribbean Sea, next to South America.
Have any experiences or anything you would like to share?
Uh, I'd like to share a bit again about myself. Um, I was born with the ability to astral project, but it was nothing like glamorous. It was terrible. I've had a terrible childhood. My parents never ascribed to astral projection. As far as they were concerned, it was demonic.
Mm. Oh
So my
yeah.
childhood was terrible in that I was always sent to my corner and I got a lot of flogging. I could not mention anything that I've seen. And my nickname as a child was the voodoo child. So it was really terrible until I cried, I screamed to my spirit guides and said, "Look, I don't want to have any part with you guys. Get away from me." I felt like there was this clip from Twilight Zone, a woman. I don't know if anyone ever saw that clip episode in which she was born in a place where she was a beautiful woman, and she was born in a place where everyone had a pig-looking head, and she tried a few operations to look like them, and she was just wanted to be like those people, and finally, she was sent to a place where people look like her, and I felt this afternoon that I have gone to this place now, where I have people like my kind.
Well, so you're talking about in your most recent out of body experiences you have?
Oh, well, for 3 years, I did not do it until in my late teens when I started again. And it has been an up and down. got married, fell out again, and divorce started again. So it has always been an uphill, downhill thing. But I've had some, and I've had some validations, and I'm looking forward for that program where we talk about validation, things that you could prove that the astral world is not just a dream. Because I've had several of them, but I could actually prove that it was not a dream.
Right. Yeah, Monroe talks about a lot of that in his first book.
Regarding the book, it was, I went through the 3 chapters, and I could tell you it was beautiful. I mean, I think it will be an injustice to Robert Monroe and this book for us to just use this small segment to go through these 3 chapters. Really, I mean, it has been intriguing reading them. It has been informative. It has been educational. It brought some validation to some of the things that I have done. It was also erotic, and hilariously erotic in one page. I think it was page 126 or something like that. And it was also poetical.
Oh, yeah.
There was some poetry, and there was some sad. When I read the part where the young boy was shot, and it was really, really sad. And it reminded me of a number of my favorite movies that I've looked, like movies like The Matrix and Ghost. I think the people who wrote that movie, Ghost, with Patrick Swayze, I think I read this book because most of the things that I see there, I'm seeing it in this book. And some of the wonderful movies that I've looked at, like The Lake House and Back to the Future also. So really, I've enjoyed reading the 3 chapters, and I think my highlighter is gone. I think I have to buy another. I almost highlighted the entire book.
Yeah, I think a lot of movies, they got a lot of their ideas from Monroe, it seems like, and other people too, but I think a lot of it, I see a lot of resemblance too. Thanks, Mikey. Leah, would you like to do an introduction?
Okay,
Possibly
that's
where you're from, and maybe if you want to share an experience.
okay. So my name is Laia. I'm 21 years old, and I'm new to this astral projection thing. I experienced it once, and that was like 2 weeks ago, I guess.
Oh.
Yeah. So lately I've been practicing. I only like
Congratulations.
Thank you. So yeah, the experience of astral projection, I got influenced after watching Behind Her Eyes, and I was so afraid to try it, and that until one day I decided like I need to do it. So I set my alarm and woke up like 4 hours later. I set my body to sleep and kept my mind awake, and it literally worked for me. And then after like, I don't know, like 10 minutes, I found myself out of my body, and like you can say like fear controlled me, and I wanted to go directly back to my body, but I couldn't go direct like right back in the moment, and I was like so afraid. So I was aware of what's going around me, but like I couldn't go back. So I started shaking touching my right hand on my left hand until I woke up, and that was it. And I kept like practicing meditation for like only 2 days and tried to astral project again, but it didn't work for me. Like the out of body thing didn't work for me again. I don't know why.
Just to let you know, after I had my first one, it took weeks before I had another one, and it's very common.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it could be a combination of fear, excitement, elation, and just contemplating on what happened to you and stuff like that. So it's normal, it's okay, and that's great that you had one, and that now you have that confidence there to back you up, to know that you're into the area that you want to be into, and just keep doing your homework on it and keep exploring.
Okay, sure, I'll do. But is it like, what are some things that I can do to like improve it, like go out of my body again?
You're doing it right now by being on this Zoom meeting.
Okay,
Just
great.
keep educating yourself, and the
Mm-hmm.
more out of bodies you have, and the more education you have, most likely the farther you're gonna get.
Uh-huh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're doing the right thing.
Thank you.
Thanks for thanks for joining.
You're welcome.
Hi, Julie. What's new?
Hello. Oh, not much. So I'm Julie. I guess I never really go back and reintroduce myself. I'm Julie from California. Have 2 grown sons and got into this subject matter about a year ago. Always been interested in near-death experiences. I've been hearing about those since I was a teenager, but I never really heard much about out-of-body experiences until a year ago. I think I think all of this is increasing in becoming more and more known information, which is great. And started meditating, learning about different kinds of meditation, started putting into practice some astral projection or out-of-body techniques. And lucid dreaming, started practicing lucid dreaming as well, techniques. And so over the last year, I've had, at least a dozen or more, I guess, of lucid dreams where I control them. And then out of body, what I would consider 2 full, for sure, fully conscious out of body, and then a couple other out of body experiences that were kind of a blend of, I wasn't fully conscious, so I think I kind of blended into some lucid dreaming as well. And then lots of partial out of body. And it is very interesting what you were just sharing, that it's like sometimes I feel like for whatever reason, I get that sweet spot and I'm able to do it. It's almost like all the stars are aligned or something. I have no idea what it is. And I try to repeat all the same techniques, but it doesn't always, most of the time it doesn't work. But having said that, I do feel like I've increased. I never used to experience any kinds of lucid dreaming or partial out of body stuff. So I'm obviously doing something right. I'm on the right path, but it's something that for a lot of us is not, for whatever reason, we have to really work at it, and you have to be patient. And it's almost like, it's harder than going to the gym, I think. I feel like we get consistent results, even better when like you're working out every day. But it's something definitely that I think needs consistency. But I also think it's okay to take a break sometimes if you're feeling burnout. Like for me, there's been times just life gets in the way and I have to take a break, and then I come back fresh, a little bit more fresh, and it's almost like I get a little bit of a positive response when I come back to it. So yeah, so I'm definitely enjoying my the ride, and this group has been great to help from the way I'm kind of a left-brained person. I think I probably have a pretty good balance actually, but I do like to make sense of things. So I'm enjoying learning in this group, reading the books, and then in a couple astral projection groups on Facebook has been helpful to hear other people's experiences. But I'll tell you, the experiences are so varied. So varied. So I would say be ready to hear like no one technique or no one experience. It's just all so varied.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So good to see everyone. Good to be here.
Thanks, Julie. Yeah, Julie, I see you as like a big black hole that opened up, and you're just absorbing like everything around you that relates to this, and you're trying to piece it all together.
I agree. Yeah.
And Mikey says your photo reminds him of Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I don't even know. I don't know why sometimes my photo comes up and sometimes it doesn't. Yeah, Wonder Woman. Okay, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be Wonder Woman in the astral world.
Thanks, Julie. All right. Let's see. Fadi, would you like to do an introduction? Maybe where you're from, if you want to share experience too.
Yes, sure. My name is Fadi and I live in Sweden. I am 38 years old. I have been experiencing lucid dreaming since my childhood. Been practicing for years now, but of course not all the time. I am not mastering it. I wish I could. Usually I use the wild method it's more known, it's a technique more known for lucid dreamers, but in my opinion it works almost the same. The only thing that I'm not experiencing while using the wild technique is I have never felt the vibrational state. But I guess it doesn't matter. It works for me in a different way. It's like I just lay there and meditate. And when I feel that my body is numbing, too much numb, and I do get tired and decide to sleep, that's when it starts to work and I suddenly see myself outside of my body. It's a lovely experience. I am actually addicted to it. I love it. I wish I could be doing it all the time, but you can't. We have work to do. We have to wake up early sometimes. It's not possible.
Right.
Some people they claim that they do get stuck in the astral realm. I guess those who claim that they can get stuck are very, very lucky, because the most what I'm struggling mostly with, and I think the others also do struggle with staying in the astral world, staying in the lucid, keeping from waking up. I think that's my biggest problem that I have to work on. I know I do control myself in the beginning with by calming down and not get too excited, but it doesn't always work. My lucid dreams and my astral projections are often very short. Well, I have experienced a longer, maybe 5-10 minutes sometimes, maybe more sometimes, but most of the time unfortunately they are very short. So that's what I have to work on. That's my goal, and I think I am going all in this time. Yes.
Cool. Thank you, Fadi. Yeah,
Thank you.
The things you were describing is very common among practitioners, astral projection, out-of-body experiences, of making them longer and short and stuff like that. And just keep doing your homework. What I could say, keep doing your homework and keep going at it. And I know life gets in the way, but
yes.
Yeah, you do the best you can, explore as much as you can, and have fun doing it.
I'm actually meditating now every night before sleeping. I know that the opening the third eye chakra might help very much, might higher your awareness. I remember once when I used to listen to binaural beats every night before sleeping, and I did that for about 3 weeks for every day. And at that time, after 3 weeks, I don't know what happened to me, because suddenly I could remember every dream. My dreams were much more vivid. I had lucid dreams every night, and it was with a high level of awareness. It was like waking life. It was so wonderful. So I think it's something I have to try again. It's because of the meditation, I guess. So it might be some third eye chakra opening. I don't know. I don't have so much knowledge about the chakras issue. Um, yeah, but as you said, I have to keep it up.
Yeah, keep it up, fatty. Also, I was going to tell you real quick. I have a good friend here in the U.S. He's from Sweden, and he has a lot of lucid dreams, and he's always telling me about them. He grew up in Sweden and he moved to the U.S.
Okay,
All right, thanks for joining us, fatty. Julie.
thank you.
You know, that reminded me what you were sharing there. Maybe you know, according to some of Susan's experiences, she's an experienced traveler in the group. And she would say, and I've heard this with other travelers, that they want to stay out. They get really good at staying out for pretty long periods of time, but their guides or whatever will bring them back. We'll kind of get them, encourage them, coerce them, whatever, because there's a time period or for whatever reason, I don't know why, but how do you remember hearing that, Juice? Like the guides will say, no, it's time to go back. You got to get back to your body. So I'm wondering to myself, because I've heard every once in a while in the groups, some of the Facebook groups, they'll be, you know, will I get stuck out there? I'm afraid. And most of us are trying to get stuck out there longer. But it would seem that even if you're stuck, you're not going to stay out longer than what's necessary. Does that make sense? What do you think about that, Juice?
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to Robert Monroe on this. Even the guides and himself, a lot of things that bring him back is a full bladder,
Right.
or his arm falls asleep, or his cat jumps on him.
Yeah.
So he talks about all these different things and why he brings him back, and sometimes the helpers can see that he needs to go back for somehow they can figure that out, that something's bothering his physical body. But yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Here we go, guys. You ready? Head into the book. Robert Monroe's Ultimate Journey, 8, 9, and 10 tonight. I talked to Susan tonight. She won't be able to make it. She had something she had to do. All right, so as we move into Chapter 8, Recall and Review is the name of the chapter. I'm going to read off a few things out of my notes. Feel free at any time to chime in, raise a hand, respond to stuff that I'm talking about, or bring up your own highlighted areas of the Chapter 8 that you want to talk about. In Chapter 8, Monroe is still trying to discover the missing basic he keeps talking about from the previous chapters, the missing basic. Monroe talks about how the Monroe Institute was created in 1971, so he starts to get back into that, and that was 1971 when that started. He did have some stuff going on before that, but the Institute was actually officially started in 71. After developing an efficient means by which sound could be used to induce sleep easily, Monroe discovered how certain patterns of sound will induce different states of consciousness not ordinarily available to the human mind. This discovery changed the direction of the research more into altered states. So now we're getting into the Hemi-Sync products that Monroe is most famous for, that he has patents on. And Monroe mentions a Hemi-Sync, and that is short for Hemispheric Synchronization, of both of your left and right brains working together at about a 5 hertz differential between the two, which provides its users with a self-controlled tool to accomplish their own goals by facilitating a sustaining, purposely focused, highly productive, coherent mind-brain state. And then Monroe starts to get into how consciousness is a continuum. The spectrum of consciousness ranges seamlessly, endlessly beyond time-space into other energy systems. It also continues downward through animals and plant life, possibly into some atomic level. Everyday human consciousness is active, commonly in only a small segment of the consciousness continuum. And then Monroe gets into the phasing concept, which I find interesting. And does anybody out there know of Michael Raduga, who started with the out-of-body called the phase?
Yes.
Well,
yes.
it's interesting because this came to my mind that Monroe starts talking about the phasing concept, and I think he mentioned it in chapter book 2 too as well. So I'm wondering if Michael Raduga got the phase name from reading the book. And Monroe's books has been out all over the place. So now the phase, he gets into this, and he gets into this a lot. He starts using the phase a lot, this terminology. So for anybody who doesn't know, Michael Raduga is a person from Russia who is pretty big into the out-of-body experience scene. He has a lot of videos out there, and he's got books, and he teaches a lot of courses on out-of-body. And I even did a thing on him once here on the YouTube channel of how he incorporates everything into the phase, meaning like out-of-body experiences, alien abductions, lucid dreaming, hallucinations, daydreaming. All this stuff is considered the phase. And that's what he gets into. So basically he incorporates everything into the phase. So there's no difference. There's no like out-of-body experience. There's no lucid dreaming. It's all the phase. And then next, Monroe gets into the left-right brain information again. So that's pretty good. Mikey? Yeah, go ahead, Mikey.
I was looking at his method, and what intrigued me is that he says that the methods developed, that is in page 99, contains no dogma, no rituals or religious practices, political and social stands, no drugs or chemicals involved, hypnosis, subliminal suggestion. And this is what I like. I like that because, you know, in my country, there is something that they go into the lower realms, what I call the lower realms, the voodoo, and they invoke whatever you call those things. But it's a ritualistic thing. What I like about his method, it has none of these things.
Very true. Yeah, very good point, Mikey. And it's basically almost just a pure sense of something that's very simple that you can do to get a knowing of an altered state without anything interfering with it that you need, that you have to get hooked on. Even hypnosis and subliminal stuff he talks about too. You don't need any of that. Would anybody else like to respond? Thanks, Mikey. And Monroe now gets back into a little bit of the left-right brain information, which we talked about on the last one. He gets pretty big into that. And basically, when he's out of body, Monroe says basically his left brain is running the show most of the time. Monroe says it is the coherent whole brain consciousness that produces the precious nuggets. So you can see where the Hemi-Sync gets involved with that. That's where it's producing the good nuggets of experiences. And then at the end of the chapter, Monroe hears a little voice in his head that says, "Here you are, showing people how to use the whole of their brains and have a so-called different overview. But you don't seem to be doing anything to prepare them for what really matters. this Earth life system stuff is all very well, but they don't stay here forever. They expect more, and they expect it from you. So, what about it? So it looks like what? Monroe's starting to experience a little pressure here from his higher self of the Earth life system stuff and how it relates to us, and not just getting out of their body, but how to incorporate all this. Would anybody like to talk about that? This also, from my notes, brings us to the end of chapter 8. So would anybody like to talk about that? Or anything in chapter 8? Or anything that we talked about? Mikey?
What I'm intrigued also about is he compares, or he makes an analogy of the tuning of a radio television station. And we must understand Monroe's background, and that he came from such a background, which I also did. And it's a nice tool to teach people who wants to astral project. It's like you're tuning from one station, from one radio station or television station to another. So you gradually phase out of one, and you barely hear that one. Then the station will become strong in signal, and you'll stay there. And you may drift from one to the other. It depends on how strong your signal is.
Right. Yeah, I like the analogy he uses with that. Julie?
Yeah, I'm sure you remember, Jason. I can't remember if Mikey was here when I shared my experience. It was when I had one of my OBEs. I was pulled. I kind of was pulled or whooshed, or like wind grabbing me, and I felt this sort of a sinking sensation. And then I often hear, I call it clairaudience. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but I hear, like, I have headphones on and I can hear voices, I can hear music, I can hear bands playing, I hear a radio. I feel like it's on a radio station. That's what I hear, like somebody, an announcer, and they're talking, and then they might have somebody responding to them, like a conversation. And I've heard other languages, like I'm familiar with Spanish and French. I'm not fluent, but I know that, oh, okay, now they're speaking and it's a different radio station. Okay, so I have these sensations. And this one experience, I felt like I was going through dimensions, is the way I perceived it. And when I was being kind of whooshed along, or I felt like kind of like I was flying in a sense, but then I would physically have the sensation of when I was sinking, I heard static, like somebody, like between stations. And then when it settled, when there was the settling sensation, I heard a specific clear audio of, like I said, it could have been music, it could have been a radio announcer. And then this happened several times within, I don't know how much time went by, 10 minutes maybe, I don't know, but I felt like then I was pulled along and the radio went static again, and then it was tuning, and then I went into another frequency or something, and I could hear something, another radio station, and then it's my body, or I would, that's all I can know how to describe it. I felt like my body settled in, and then I could hear another radio station, and then I was pulled off. It went back and forth for, I feel like, I don't know, 15 minutes or something. So I found this all very interesting. Like, oh, I don't know. There's something to that. And I still wonder, what am I hearing? Some people will say, oh, that's hallucinations. Other people will say, oh, no, you're hearing other dimensions. And some people will say, oh, those are messages from your higher selves. It's a psychic thing. So it's like, I don't know what it is. And if y'all have any advice, let me know.
Yeah, Joey, I've heard the same things you have. And I've even heard some things where our fillings in our teeth is actually picking up some radio waves. And when during the out-of-body experience or between the states of physical and out-of-body, you're actually picking up some radio waves through that sometimes. So I try to write down that information when I hear it to see if there's actually if I can get a radio station name or something. But it's amazing.
Wait, so are you saying this is often between physical and out of body? It's an in-between state?
That's from my experience, yes.
Okay, so
It's like
so,
the astral noises.
so it's astral stuff before you get to before you finally get to an astral location.
From my experience, yes.
That's interesting. Okay. And then someone else I had read, they said, and it's those are sounds that you hear when you go from a lucid dream to an astral projection. But I don't know if you've heard that or if that's
Well, that could make sense from the transition, going from the lucid dream.
transitional thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
because you're from the lucid dream, you're most likely still in your physical there before you actually head out. So
That's so interesting because I've also heard these audio things when I know I'm still in the physical because I feel my non-physical body sort of sloshing around in my physical body. It's right before the exit. So that's okay, interesting.
I mean, I'm sure you hear different things, but from my experience, yes, yeah, it's part of the astral noise. You're switching frequency so fast, and you're in that mind awake, body asleep state there, and you're just
I wonder
filtering through stuff.
if it's a sign of for me like a lack of control still to be able to settle in on just slow it down, pull it in,
It's a good
and
way to
settle
look
on
at it.
one frequency here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still baby at this.
Well, it seems like even Monroe was still kind of a baby. You know, we're in his third book here, and he's still trying to figure a big chunk of it out. And there's more, like he talks about the onion. There's just one layer after another layer of another layer. So, it's all right. All right, guys. Let's head into Chapter 9, called The Hard Way. And the start of this chapter, Monroe says both the work of the Monroe Institute and the Earth Life System itself were strong knowns to him. Yet, there was some uncomfortable feeling that clues and traces of his missing basic were there. He simply wasn't able to perceive them. So here we are back in the missing basic again. He's still trying to discover what that is. He talks about other experienced subjects at the Monroe Institute could go into the out-of-body state without movement, and Monroe started to experience this with his quick switch method. It was a fading out of one consciousness state into another. To describe it as going out of phase seemed more accurate and satisfied Monroe better of his left brain classification system. So here we are back into going out of the phase and talking about the quick switch method. So in the third book here, he's got new methods and new ways of having out-of-body experiences, which almost seem now to Monroe is just instant. It's just a phase from the physical consciousness, a phase into the out-of-body, just like that now. This is where he's at.
I'll just say that Tom Campbell just says that's the way it is for him now.
Right, yeah. I remember him talking about that exactly. He can actually have a conversation, you know, like an interview, like on YouTube or wherever he's doing it, and he could be out of his body at the same time. Have you heard him say that?
Yeah, I think it's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine, like, getting to that level?
Right.
Wow.
Multitasking.
Gosh, yeah.
And then Monroe starts to talk about tests that he did with his inspect friend. He would have to repeat some of these tests over and over until they were complete. So now he's getting into these tests that he was going through when he was out of body, that inspects made him go through. And for those who don't know, inspects are Monroe's definition of intelligent species. These tests seem completely unrelated to his physical life, although many of them were coached in human Earth settings and situations. So while he was out of his body, these tests were done in Earth settings and situations. And I remember he kind of talked about this before in the past, that they were like different simulations, like holograms he would talk about. So these were set up for him to learn. Monroe says his whole history of OBE was left brain dominant. So he mentions that again. And then Monroe brings up a story again where he couldn't get back into his body and was stuck on one side of a steel wall and needed to go through that to get to his body, as he thought. He was having thoughts of being stuck there for eternity. His left brain logic kicked in, and he went back the way he came to get easily back into his body. So if you guys remember that back in the previous books, where he was stuck and he thought he'd be there stuck forever, and he knew he had that fear, and he was crying. He was asking angels for help. He was asking any guides to help him, helpers, and nobody would help him. And eventually he did make it back to his body. Mikey?
There is always a fear in astral projection of one, something will enter your body, and secondly, you will get stuck. And what Monroe did there is typical of what you should do. I remember once I was stuck in this dome, like it's a glass dome, and I remembered, draw a door or window, and I took my hand and I drew a window and I opened the window and I was able to get out. One other thing I wanted to mention regarding chapter 8 is that I think Robert Monroe did an excellent job. I'm not familiar with the Monroe Institute except through Tom Campbell. And I'm wondering, you who are close enough, can you tell me if the Monroe Institute has been given any recognition by maybe the mainstream media or anyone, as compared to other philanthropic organizations? We hear a whole lot about all the others. Do we get that from the media?
It's not been a lot, but from my experience, there has been some things out there. You can do a search on Google or YouTube, and you can see and type in the Monroe Institute and see what people say about it. But it seems like it should have gotten more to me. I almost feel like because the government was involved with the Monroe Institute in the past, and sending people there and trying to figure out, and that's where remote viewing got a grasp and stuff like that. Monroe was also part of that. You can actually see him on a video on YouTube talking with a remote viewer back in the day. But I'm almost wondering sometimes if the government's here in the U.S. is like, you guys can do this here, but let's not go a little crazy and try to get everybody involved in this. I have no idea. Sometimes I think about that. Anyone else? Harris?
So I think maybe it's kind of related to the missing basic. I mean, every time I hear about basic, I think about groundedness, rootedness, feeling comfortable in what you're doing. And yeah, it is true that there can be a lot of fear when you're trying to astral travel. Maybe there are other entities that you might meet, or you definitely worry about whether you might ever get back to your body, or you might end up in places. Depends on how out of control you might be. But yeah, I mean, we can definitely all do it, but I think definitely we would just have to really learn what are the do's and don'ts when you astral travel. But that's just my opinion.
Thanks, Harris. Yeah, wonder sometimes the big picture on that. I've heard about it when I was a kid, but it's always been like a low-key thing. And the only reason why I heard more about it is because I did my own research. It never really came to me too much. Anyone else? So, let's see. So after that story of getting lost and trying to get back to his body, for more clues on the missing basic, Monroe has to go back to the beginning to pick up what he had missed. So now Monroe feels like he has to go all the way back, reevaluate everything that he's doing to try to find this missing basic. Monroe does a quick switch and ends up with some kind of war-type scene. Monroe pulls a dying man out of his body by his head during this war, or this battle that's going on. Monroe tries to tell the fighter that he has died in battle, but the man did not want to believe it. Even going back into battle, but his hands were going through everything. Monroe eventually takes the dead man with him above the battlefield, looking for a ring to drop him off at. Before he could do that, the man suddenly disappears. After Monroe thinks about this, he realizes there were 3 versions of himself at the same place at the same time during the battle. It was him who died, and him who was helping him on the battlefield after he died, and it was him showing why his abdomen hurt back in the day when he got taken back to show why, in the first book, why his stomach was hurting during his first out-of-body experience or during that time. So here we go. This is pretty big here, guys. That Monroe starts to realize that there's different versions of himself helping himself out there. Would anybody like to talk about that?
Yes, that has intrigued me quite a lot in this chapter here. And what it told me is that we have access to our higher self. And I have done something once, and I have accessed my future self. I have lost something very precious to me, and I have accessed my future self. And my future self showed me where it was and what condition it was in at that time, because the time my future self found the item, it was all rotted and so on. And I actually went and found the thing. I could not see it. I knew where it was, and it was like months later I actually found it. So it's a bit of time travel there, where my future self found it almost a year after that. I looked for it and never found it until that a long period of time, and then it was rotten.
It's interesting because from my brain, I'm thinking about, you have all these of yourselves helping yourselves out, but you feel like you're stuck in one of those, and you're wondering if you're stuck in this body and you feel like you're fully here in this body, but you have your future and past selves helping you out. How could they be feeling like they're in their body, but you're still in your body? If that makes any sense to anyone.
So what you're saying is, right now I feel fully conscious here.
Right.
And so all my other lives, parallel, alternative, however you want to say it, lives, also each of them feel fully conscious.
Yeah.
Right. But I think it's the higher self, though, that is in touch with all of them. Not because we're on the this is how I picture it, like I'm on the lower level, as well as all my parallel selves are. My parallel selves are parallel, they're not higher, so they're going to be in their own thing. It's my higher self who can experience all me and all my parallel selves. Does that make sense? No? I don't know. I'm trying to make sense of it.
Yeah, sometimes these things have to settle in the mind. Harris?
Actually, I think one way to explain this is with a story in Hinduism where, I don't know if you know about this kind of god, but it's a story about Lord Indra and about how he went to what's called a Prajapati, which is like a son of Lord Brahma. And basically he went to the Prajapati, to learn about the true self. And so the Prajapati gave him 3 different lessons. So each one relating to body, mind, and soul. So the first lesson was the true self was your body and all that. And then Indra thought maybe it was true for a while, went back to teach the other devas, but then realized it wasn't really the full truth. So he went back, then asked the Prajapati again, okay, so what is really the true self? And basically he said, okay, so it's the mind, you know, it's your personality. And then for a while he thought, okay, so that's the true self. Okay, so then he tried to go back to teach the other devas, but midway he realized, okay, no, this doesn't feel right. This is not the full truth. So he went back to the Prajapati, and that's when the final lesson was given. And basically he says that the true self is something that is here that's here but not here at the same time. It's like a storm, you know. You can see that it's there. It looks like it's physically there, but when you go there, it's just clouds. You try to touch it, but you can't really feel it. It's not very solid. So it's like here but not here at the same time. Because being part of the true self is like being part of different levels of existence, if that makes any sense. And I think our role as souls or as human beings or people is to really just find a kind of balance between these three kinds of states. And I think it may depend on your level of existence. Maybe you're a second dimensional being or a third dimensional being or fourth or fifth or whatever, you know. I think whatever is needed for your current state of existence for you to basically function well, I guess. But yeah, I guess that's my take on it.
Yeah, thanks, Harris. I like the different outlooks. And it's like all of us need to get to that point where it's like, aha, where it makes sense to us. You know, depending where we are in our spiritual journey. And to get to that point, like, okay, that makes sense to me now. So.
And then that's when we will go, but this other stuff doesn't make sense. And then we'll keep going on the ladder of searching for the aha moments.
But I think that's the point of existence. You know, you keep exploring things, and you know, I think ultimately towards the end of your whole existence, maybe towards Judgment Day, maybe then that's when you realize the full truth. You know, the more you experience, the wiser you become. The more you realize, the more you know.
Later down in the chapters, Monroe meets people who are dead, and they're not even aware they're dead. So one experience I've had, and another one that I was able to prove that astral projection is not a dream. Some years ago, I had a projection, and I was in this place, and there was this large clock tower. But I got a name. I think Julie was mentioning something like that, and it's like a radio was saying a name. And as soon as I woke, I wrote the name down, and I Googled the name. And it turns out that that person lived in the 18th century somewhere, 18th or 19th century somewhere. And the name was correct. Also, the name, the person lived in a city, and I saw the city is in ruins, and actually I saw the same city. I saw it new when I projected, and they show a ruins of the same, with the same clock tower. That's why I remember this, the same place that I had projected to. The interesting thing about it is that scientist, he studied binary stars. He was one of the first pioneers in binary stars. And I wondered as a child why I was so intrigued about stars. I was always, well, to my sibling, I was crazy. My siblings, I was crazy in any case. But I would look at the stars and they said, well, he's crazy. Let him look at the stars. But why I was so interested in the stars, I did not know. But I think now, when I got that projection, I felt my past self still had that desire, and it bleeded on in this life to me.
Wow, that's great, Mikey. Well, you're right too, Mikey. He also starts getting into the different people he's helping out here. With the first one finding out that it's actually himself helping himself out. But the next incident is back in the first books where creatures were on his back, and turned out to be his cats, and someone came and took them off Monroe's back. Monroe finds out that that person he saw, who he felt he recognized at the time, that helped him out take those creatures off his back, which were cats, that it was himself again. And there were actually 2 of them there at that incident. So Monroe's making some new revelations here about his out-of-body experiences. And then Monroe asks himself, were all of such current non-physical events simply calls or screams for help from the other I's in different times and places? Who was this I that had the audacity to answer these calls? Have I been helping me through all of these years? So that's what he asked himself there now after these 2 major incidences. And then Monroe tries to help a woman who died and stayed in her house. He takes her to go look for her husband eventually. He never finds her husband, and soon he loses her in the rings. So now we're getting into things where Monroe's helping people, and he ends up losing these people as he tries to help them out. They just disappear. So we got to start getting into some stories on that. And then Monroe tries to help a man who died in the hospital and was in a place with nothing around him. The man was upset. There was no gates of heaven or hell. After he died, he was kind of raging. He was raging at Monroe, saying, there's no heaven, there's no hell, what is this when you die? And he's just stuck in this limbo type area. And he was very pissed off he died. Eventually he told Monroe to leave him alone, and he didn't want his help anymore. So, looks like Monroe's getting into helping people and different scenarios with that. And then towards the end of the chapter, Monroe finds out that not all of the signals he receives came from an earlier him. So these are not from his earlier self. Also, helping others goes with the job. While you're helping yourself, you automatically lend a hand to others if you can do so. And Susan would be good in this area. Mikey?
One of the things that I read there is he complained that there is no heaven, there is no hell. And he complains that the people who taught him, I can't remember the word he used. He said, I can't remember the word, but it's like they taught him rubbish. And now I'm on this side and there's no hell, there's no heaven. But from my early studies of the Bible, I recognize that it is true that people tell us a hell, and what they do, they teach us a burning hell. But actually, that is also biblical, an outer darkness. I was reminded that hell is also outer darkness, and that is the hell that he had gone to, the hell that is called outer darkness. Christ spoke about the outer darkness.
Right.
So people do talk a lot about the burning hell, but they don't talk about the outer darkness hell.
Good point. Anyone else would like to talk about this? All right, well, that leads me to the end of the chapter there, when Monroe finds out that while you're helping yourself, you automatically lend a hand to help others, and if you can do so. And so this is where he starts to get into now. He starts to wonder why he's getting called to help so many people. And if any of you know, when Susan's on here, she talks about it a lot, that she is a big helper in the out-of-body state of helping people who died and cross over and try to help them, lead them either to their family or to a better spot than just being stuck somewhere. All right, I'm going to pull up the last chapter of the night, chapter 10.
Before you move
Julie?
on.
Oh yeah, Julie, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it kind of reminds me of the law of one a little bit, if you're familiar with that, the entity Ra, the collective consciousness Ra, who was channeled in the 80s through this woman and a team. Anyway, and how service to self and service to others is what the third density, which is what we're on right now, we call it, or some people call it three-dimensional, but third density is about learning how to not just serve yourself, but serve others. And the law of one is this idea of like, we're all one. We're really all, when we serve others, we really are serving ourselves, you know. And it's funny to me, this idea of, oh wait, there's a lot of selves. Not only are we all one, but, and then when I'm serving you, Juice, I'm serving myself, and so on and so on. But I actually literally do have myself. It's such a far out concept for me. And that Monroe had a chance to like literally help his other selves. But then there's this concept in the law of the one, that even when I'm helping you, Juice, I am helping my other self,
Right.
in a sense. And I think it's kind of a beautiful concept.
Yeah, it is. I agree. Thanks, Julie.
Sure.
Okay, guys, chapter 10, Detached Retinue. Name of the chapter. And if I remember correctly, we're going to get into some stories here of Monroe starting to help a lot of people out. Let's see. As the chapter starts with Monroe saying, "It was a never-ending task, this answering of signals for help each time I went out of body. Monroe said he could do this the rest of his life and not even make a dent in the mass of such signals." And I have a note here if Susan was on to ask her about that tonight. Monroe starts to ask himself why he suddenly became exposed to these signals after so many years. Why were they causing distress in his physical body? It seemed that most, if not all, of these signals were originating in areas off the interstate, as Monroe was now accustomed to regard it. He referred to it as the interstate. And he would do is get off like different exits and stuff while out of body. And remember, he's moving into these stages now pretty instantaneous. He's basically phasing from the physical right into these out-of-body states, or wherever he tries to home in on, whatever he's trying to work on. So he got pretty good at that. And then Monroe finds a man who died of a heart attack, but he doesn't want to believe that he's dead, and is trying to have sex with a living girl he's always wanted to hook up with for the past 10 years. Monroe tries to help this man, but eventually loses him. And then after that incident, Monroe then tries to help a woman who died in a hospital, but was confused about being dead. As Monroe was helping her, he lost her hand somewhere at the midpoint. So here's another woman here that's died and doesn't know that she's dead. And it seems like for some reason Monroe keeps losing these people. And he kind of questioned it a little earlier in the previous chapter, or towards the end of the previous chapter, of why he's starting to lose these people and what's going on with them. And what he's trying to do is he's trying to take them to meet people, either their husbands or their wives, or he's trying to bring them to a better spot, and it's just they're disappearing. And then the next one here, I think Mikey brought this one up a little earlier tonight, about a man who was killed by police while trying to rob a bank, and understands and try to show him that to understand that he's dead now. After losing some past dead souls around the middle upper rings, Monroe tries to keep a constant observation on the boy, but eventually the kid disappears like all of the others. So here he is again helping somebody who's dead, that was killed by the police, and doesn't want to believe that he's dead. Tries to help him out to bring him to a better area, and loses him again.
May I ask one question, please?
Yeah, sure.
um, does he see the scenario what happened to these people, or he just know that this guy was killed of a police, or how does he know that how they died?
In these scenarios, he's actually walking in. So let's take the boy that was killed. He's getting called when he's out of body. He's getting pulled to these situations, so they're
Okay.
kind of fresh. They're just happening. So he instantly gets pulled to these, and then he sees the setup of the police officers, and then he sees the dead body there, and he recognizes the man that's dead from the dead body, and he just learns from it that way. If we went to the previous one before that about the woman, he's actually in the hospital and sees all these cords hooked up to this woman that's in the hospital, and he builds up the information from that, knowing that the woman must have died, and he actually sees the sheet being pulled over the woman's head at the time. So he's being pulled into these fresh as they're happening in that time. Mikey?
In the movie Ghost with Patrick Swayze, I'm reminded of that movie when I read that. Robert Monroe really taught me something this evening. In that, when you pass on, it depends on the situation. You're confused, and in that movie, I can't remember his name. He ran down the criminal, thinking he was still alive. And the experience I had and stories I've been told is that when you pass on, you're confused. Unless you lie down there, you know you're going to pass on, and you pass on. But if you're suddenly pulled away, you go through that confused state. Right. And what Monroe is doing is very, very painful. And maybe he doesn't mention it, but for the few occasions I've had, it has been it's no glamorous thing at all. Seriously, it's not glamorous. I've had to deal with a couple of people, and one of the worst I would say to anyone is a woman who has passed on during childbirth. It's the worst to deal with. I've met this woman. She passed on during childbirth, and she came to me not through an astral projection. It was just like that. And it's a bit graphic to describe what was going on, but it took me a long time to get over it. It pulled a lot of my energy. And speaking of energy, I think it was Julie who asked the question, why do you come back? And one of my theory, I could be wrong, is that you need what I call cosmic energy out there in the astral realm. And when you get to that point that you run out of cosmic energy, you pull back. And for those who fear, you're always connected to your body. Whether you ascribe to a silver cord or not, you are connected and you will get back. You will have no fear that you're going to be stuck out there. Actually, I like to be there. I wish most of the times that I could stay there, and they say, no, you got to get back. You're running out of energy. And we need to build up our energy, our cosmic energy, to the food we eat and all the other stuff, so that when we go out there, we can stay a long time. The one last point I have to mention is that time in the astral is different. Sometimes I'm out there for 3 months. I suppose it's like 3 months. And when I get back, I said, oh my gosh, I'm going to get fired. I'm out there for three months, and I look at the phone, it's like 15 minutes I'm out. Just 15 minutes in our time is like 3 months out there.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point to remember too, right? Of the time, space versus when that's finished here, when we're not physical anymore. Yeah, and also too, Mikey, with the trauma of being killed unexpectedly and having that experience different from somebody who's old or more wise, and they can accept it more. of having.
If I could just jot in here,
Yeah.
I pass on, I will not know. I will just think I'm having another outer body experience. Someone will have to come and say, Mikey, you're dead.
To see your what there?
I would think that I'm having another outer body experience. Someone will, in the astral, will have to come and say, Mikey, you're dead. You're dead. You're not having an astral projection.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I would think that us that are on here doing this right now would probably have a better time transitioning over. Fadi, back to your question earlier to the first situation there about the sexual one there. He just kind of, Monroe got pulled there, and he sees the act as it's happening as he gets there, and then tries to help this guy out. So he sees everything that's going on as it was happening, and tries to wake this person up and tell him, you know what, you know, you're dead. Your physical body's not there anymore. That's why it's a little weird to you. And
okay, so that's how he helps those people by telling them that they are actually dead.
Yeah, trying to do the best he can to tell them it, and some of them fight him. They don't want to believe that they're dead.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, he's got to show them either by, like, showing them that, you know, their hands go through stuff, or that nobody's talking to them, they're ignoring them, to actually kind of prove it to them that, hey, there's a good possibility you're dead. And some people don't want to hear it, so they're stuck there for a while. They don't even want Monroe's help.
I actually used to talk to my dream characters or entities by asking them, who are you people? Are you another person who is dreaming, or are you a part of my subconsciousness? Or yeah, I like to talk to them in this way, and I always receive a very weird and strange answer, like, what are you talking about? Who the fuck are you?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think many of us receive this kind of question, like they look like, what, who is this weird guy, strange person asking this kind of question. um and this is very interesting, why dream characters always, in my experience and what I have read for other people also, they act almost the same way.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it could either be your subconscious, or you could be talking to, you know, another energy form.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Julie?
I was just gonna say I've read that well, and I've listened to experienced travelers who say that the dream characters, generally it'll be your subconscious, and they will, you kind of recognize that it's different. It's like they're not independent. You can kind of tell that you're sort of, it's something that you would expect. The astral characters, like the real independent consciousnesses, will say stuff like that. So maybe you're maybe you're in an astral realm. Maybe you are not having a dream, but your consciousness is actually taking you to another realm with these independent entities saying, who the fuck are you, dude? Would you just leave me alone? It's a very common, I've heard that, I've read that, is a very common way for astral, like real astral entities, to react to us when we're out there and we think we're dreaming, and we treat them like dream characters, but they're not. It's kind of disrespectful in a way for them, because it's like going up to someone on the street, you know, in your real life and saying stuff like that, and they're just like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, exactly. That's very interesting that you are saying that, because when I had those experience, I had very high level of awareness. So it is actually astral projection more than lucid dreaming. Yes, you are right.
Yeah, perhaps phased, given that phrase, you know, into actually a higher frequency, to where you know, you could have been lucid dreaming, but we can actually phase or drift into, depending on accident or in control, into a real physical, outside of the subjective and into the real, like what's it called, consensus consciousness, what is it called? Anyway, reality, where it's like it's a reality, it's like real entities. It's not our subconscious making it up anymore.
Yes, yes. Because I'm always seeking answers by those entities, by asking them, can you tell me something about my past lives? But
They may not
can
know.
you tell me what? Can you tell me where I can find my guide? I remember I had a lucid dream once,
Yeah.
and I went through the street and asking every dream character how I can find my guides.
Oh my goodness.
And they didn't want to tell me. They were like, what are you talking about?
Well, if it was an astral realm, yeah, that means like a physical realm, they might have been, yeah, not knowing what the heck you're talking about. Maybe you should present it like, I'm a journalist, I'm an investigator, and I'm investigating different situations or realms, and maybe go from there and say, where are we right now?
Yeah,
It's interesting.
it's
Yeah.
very interesting.
And Fadi, you know what's even more interesting, Julie too, and everybody else, is that we're trying to get information from each other here, which is just another realm of people that we're talking to right now, each other here.
Right.
Exactly.
So it's fun and crazy.
We live in a strange world.
Yeah.
We live in a strange multiverse.
It's exciting. I mean, I find it exciting. I hope everybody else does, and just trying to figure out what's going on here.
It's very
Yeah.
exciting, of course.
Yeah.
And there are few people. I have few friends who think about this issue. So I don't think I have a friend who is interested in this issue. So it's very interesting to talk about it.
Yeah.
Over Zoom too. This
I
is
don't
very
have
strange for many of people,
Oh yes.
Thank
Yes.
goodness for the internet.
Yeah.
Yes.
We can reach out to all across the globe, because that's what it takes right now until it becomes more of a common thing.
Yes.
Great, guys. All right, back to the book here. Monroe starts to think he isn't out for this job of what he's doing, helping people, because he keeps losing them. So he thinks he's not cut out for it. And then Monroe tries to help a thing that looks like a Neanderthal friend who died while committing suicide off a cliff. This person also dissolved and faded into nothing as he watched. So there was this time area that he went back to during his out-of-body experience, and he met these people that commit suicide if something doesn't go right. I don't remember exactly what, and these women jump off cliffs and kill themselves. And the woman that jumped off didn't understand that she was actually dead, so he tried to help her out, and she disappeared. Mikey?
Did I read there that she said that a woman who cannot have children has to jump over the cliff?
Yes, that's right. Yep, exactly. Yeah, that's what it was. If the woman can't have a kid, they jump off and kill themselves over the side of the cliff. And this woman had trouble transitioning over after she killed herself. Then Monroe met a woman who was waiting for him. She led Monroe into an area where many hundreds of others were there. The radiation Monroe knew as love was overwhelming. There were many others like Monroe out there. They were all on the outer edge of the belief system territories. They were awakening from the dream of physical life. That's pretty cool. And then Monroe finds out that he was the role of a scout, information gatherer, trailblazer. These have been his pattern for thousands of Earth years and lifetimes. So he just made a major discovery about himself. At the end of the chapter, Monroe meets up with his old buddy from the early days, BB. BB's back from the good old days. And then BB disappears. He didn't stay long. Not much happened, so we'll see what happens in the future chapters with BB. And that brings us to the end of chapter 10. Would anybody have any questions on chapter 10 they'd like to bring up?
I like the trailblazer part. I think Robert Monroe has blazed the trail for us. I have read a number of books, and they'd always refer to Robert Monroe. I have read his books from the early times, and they have encouraged me because, as I said, I have gone through a terrible time. And those were some books. We did not have internet in those days that I was really encouraged by.
Definitely. I agree, Mikey. Well, if there's no more questions out there, would anybody like to bring up a astral projection OBE related question on any of the chapters or anything?
I was just thinking that I wonder about my experience that I shared with you about being wished off and going through the different radio frequencies, that once I get more control, perhaps, because like you were saying, perhaps that's an in-between physical and astral projection, that maybe those are my choices. Like, where do you want to be dropped off? Because in that particular experience, I was really conscious during that part, but I do remember being quote unquote dropped off in 3 different places during that experience, but it was very fuzzy and there's only little tidbits I could remember, and I wrote it all down. But it's almost like that feeling of, was that a dream, or was that did I project to an astral, to a place? It's kind of that feeling, and it's frustrating for me because I've had plenty of those. But I wonder to myself if I can practice more and more, continue down this path of, being disciplined and practicing, and maybe I can have more control over my consciousness, and I can choose one of those radio frequencies and say, okay, yeah, let's settle in here and check out what's on this realm and be more conscious of it, more awake, and remember it when I get back. That was the other thing I was sharing, that maybe when I go back, I'm having trouble downloading the information to my physical brain after I've experienced it. That could be part of it. So I'm trying to figure that out, learn as much as I can to figure out how I can be more skilled at it.
Right. Yeah, you're pulling in a lot of information, Julie. I hope you get it all organized, and I think you should keep it up.
Yeah, thank you for the encouragement.
Marty?
I just wanted to mention that just looking around online, there's a biography of Robert Monroe called The Journey of Robert Monroe. It's free online by Ronald Russell. I don't know if anybody's read it or not, but it looks interesting.
Yeah.
And along that line, and maybe this should be saved for the end of the book, but I wonder if anybody knows if Robert Monroe's, whatever you want to call it, his spirit or whatever, was contacted after he died, because he died like a year after this book was written. See if he had any comments about whether to confirm whether his theories were correct or whatever, since he'd be living in the great beyond.
Yeah, Marty, we had, you remember David that comes on here once in a while? David?
Yes.
Yeah, he was part of that got contacted by Monroe after he died. He has a story on that. And Monroe, as far as I remember, he did set up for certain people to be contacted when he died. There is information about that out there. He comes on once in a while. He hasn't been on the last few, but he's been on maybe three or four ago meetings. But yeah.
Anyway, did you recall what the conclusion about that was?
No, I don't. I wonder if they're keeping it a secret. I haven't heard anything on that, but I'm gonna. If I do come across it, I'll definitely remember that and share it. Now that you said it, I probably will come across it because you just set it up.
You know, Marty, as you were talking, I went onto the Astral Pulse. It's a message board. And I found a thread that's called "What's Robert Monroe Been Up to Lately?" It was back in 2014 that they wrote this. I hope this isn't a strange question, but I'm curious if anyone while in the astral has attempted to contact Robert Monroe. And if so, what did he have to share since his death? What's he been doing? I was wondering that to myself and figured some more experienced projectors here might have already attempted this. I'm a fan of his work. And I just pulled it up, so I don't know what the answers are. Actually, I don't see really any answers. I see one. Bummer. That is pretty strange. I would think, being such a profound human, he would have something profound to offer us in the astral zone. Maybe this could be a culprit. Oh man. I was expecting a normal night. So there is something in here. Visiting my younger self, Robert Monroe, and a strange entity. Anyway, there's a few paragraphs here. I was just pulling it up.
Yeah, I wonder if he was able to reunite with his wife. That would be an interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Because
let me put wife in the search bar.
he really
Yeah,
wanted
that
to.
would be very interesting. Yeah, I don't see anything, but
And I won't go spoil what's at the end of the book about that either here, which wasn't.
I'm sure he.
Very
I can't see why that he wouldn't. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've read and researched so much. I feel like from what I've read and researched, we have free will and we have intention and we have this ability once we cross over that's quite strong, if you will, or powerful, that we can make these connections.
While I was studying the end of chapter 10, I pondered whether Robert Monroe's presence was with us. I pondered that, and the other thing I looked at is, I was thinking, if I got this book, if this was torn up to chapter 10, I would have been satisfied, because there's so much in these last chapters that I am really, really satisfied.
And remember what Monroe said, that when people leave Earth here and they don't come back, they lose interest in the Earth life pretty fast. He did mention that.
Yes, they do, because when I've gone over, I think I shared this the last time with my brother, he was like, I'm not too concerned. And my mom also, she had a near-death experience. She was in a coma for 28 days, and she shared this with someone, and I was listening on. And she said, when I went across there, it was like, I did not care too much about coming back. And they said, no, you got to come back. And I was in all tears. I said, Mom, so you didn't care about us? And she said, look, you have your life, you have your dad, and so on. And where I'm going is good. And I'm going to be careful now. And I will always be looking over you. Really, she said that. And I think she's always looking over.
Right. All right, everybody. Next Monday will be the next book discussion on chapters 11, 12, and 13. So I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. Thanks everybody for sharing. And I hope to see everyone on Monday.
Thank you.
Been a pleasure. Looking forward for Monday.
Thanks everybody. It was a great
Looking
night.
forward to it.
Great night.
Bye.
Good night.
Night.
See ya.